We are live streaming.
Good evening. Can you see if you can dial in? What's that? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, but, yeah, it's, yeah, you can have it. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make sure, I already talked to Bruce about it, let him know that the people aren't technically hired until we get all that paperwork. But it says it in there, so he knows, so we should be good.
Okay.
Okay. Is this coming?
Yeah, it was that between of when Jeff was getting home, I think was she gonna bring her, not bring her, so she was like, yeah.
Gotcha. What do you got for us?
Don't call us.
Okay.
We were gonna look at it.
You. Like that?
You got this, you have the symbol on it.
I have a Tarzan.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, this is not a formal meeting, town board meeting, but this is an informational meeting to talk about the referendum for the park. And basically, the reason this came up was we were looking at different areas to put parks in a couple years ago. And we had people who were pro-park, and we had people who were, had opposition to the park being put in. So we decided as a board to try to get this put out to the public and let you folks decide what you want. From my perspective, I take no position on this one way or the other. It's going to be completely up to the residents of the town of Lancaster as to whether they want a park or not. So we'll wait and see what the vote comes out to, just like everybody else. Since this is not really a formal meeting, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves? If you want to start, Ed.
Oh, down there.
Ed Schiller,
Sorry.
town engineer.
Mark Burkhardt, council member.
Ed Dickman, council member.
Bob Leary, town supervisor.
Don Schroeder, council member.
Melissa Studley, council member.
Okay. We're getting a formal copy of the legal for the referendum. The town clerk has stepped out to do that. But I can summarize it in this way. Basically, we're looking at bonding $7.5 million to purchase parkland, preferably in the south part of Lancaster. Okay, we've gone out and we've walked all sorts of different plots of land to try to see what would fit in best. However, at this point in time, we can't really do anything till we get the permission of the residents if they want that park. Or if they don't, then we don't take it any further. But what we will do is, if it comes back positive, then we will make sure that we have an appraisal on some different properties, and I think we're in the process of getting that already. I don't want to say we're looking at just the spot, because that's not how this is going to work. We're going to have to be able to get an appraisal, and we're pretty much bound by the appraisal as to what we can offer the people for that plot of land, that piece of land. So again, if it comes in, they want 10 times what the appraisal comes in at, we're pretty well stuck at that point. We're not going to do that. We'd have to have some kind of massive justification to do that. So again, if it passes, if it goes forward, something can be worked out with the landowner themselves, then we would take up the bond in portions, okay? First part would be, what is it going to cost to buy this piece of land? Okay, so that would be the first one. We'd be assessing the entire time as to exactly what we were going to do with that piece of land. And our hopes, or my hopes, and then I'll let the rest of the board jump in here, basically is to, make it so we can do something with it originally, open it up to maybe some fields over here, but another part of the park is going to be a nature trail. We want to have something that's available to our residents of all ages. Okay, so that's what I'm hoping to do, looking for. And just so before I forget, after the council members have an opportunity to speak, what we'd like to do is keep this to about 5 minutes per person. Whoever wants to come up here and talk to us about their thoughts on this or ask any questions, you can come right up here to the podium and go ahead and ask us questions. So, Melissa, you want to start us off?
Sure. I echo a lot of what Supervisor Leary has said. The idea, I am not pro or against the park. I really want to hear from the residents what is best. But as far as what the parkland would look like, we don't have a lot of green space. We need some more green space. So this park, from my point of view, and what I would advocate for if it was approved, is to have some green space in there, not just the fields and a playground. I would also like, if there's a playground in there, another one or part of it to be ADA compliant. We know that that is a need as well. But like Supervisor Leary said, maybe some walking trails or some other activities that people of all ages would like. But I think that is really my main focus, is if this is something the town wants, to really just listen to everybody and have your input on what you would like to see in the park.
Dawn?
Yes, again, if this is something, I think the whole board is in agreement that, it's not that we're pro or con park. We want to reach out to the residents and get their input to make sure it's something that they want. But should a park be voted yes, if the residents vote yes to a park, as Supervisor Leary said, we had put a number out there, bonding for $7.5 million. As he said, it's going to be put out in piecemeal, in essence, so it's not going to be slamming down $7.5 million down people's throats, as well as there are grants that we can seek out to help us for development and application of the park. There's always engineering, and there's, design work and things like that. There's definitely grants out there available, and we are in line for those grants. As well as if there's going to be fields, sports fields, Bob and I have already been, and Bruce too, I don't know if Bruce Stutz is here, we've already been working with the ball leagues on the turf field that's going in. I think that another joint effort would help the taxpayer as far as offsetting costs. That's about it. It's not just slamming a big number down people's throats. It would be a step-by-step process.
Yeah, we do have some other people in here to answer questions if anybody has any. Parks Crew Chief Bruce Stutz is here, and Bob Giroux is also here, who handles our rec department, part-time rec department. Okay, Adam?
Basically, just to echo what they said is, we need everybody's input here. This is a huge, huge project that we'd be taking on a lot of money. And this, the reason we're here tonight, obviously, for you guys to ask any questions, and hopefully we could answer them for you. But when it's something this big, we need the input of, the taxpayers within the town, because this is, our money, your money and ours. So hopefully we can answer all your questions.
Mark?
Last, I don't have much after everyone just spoke, but again, it's really the taxpayers, what you want. Green space, we can't get it back. If it's developed on, we can't get that back. It's approved, look to everyone and have a nice park that, like Melissa said, it's for everyone, all ages, and bring that together and, work step by step to really put that diagram together that we can present to everyone before we move forward with it, so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Diane Terranova, by the way, our town clerk. Okay. All right, so anybody who wants to come up, ask any questions, make any kind of statement, we're going to kind of, like I said, hold you to about 5 minutes. So anybody want to raise their hand and be the first up? I think we have a volunteer. Are we taking names and addresses or no? Not necessary? Okay.
Yes, hello.
Hi, I live on 4th Avenue. My name is Paulette Mayo. I don't think we need another park in Lancaster. Okay, it's putting an additional burden on all the senior taxpayers that live in this village, and I'm sure there's people back here that agree with me. Secondly, who's going to patrol and maintain that park, okay, at an additional cost? Secondly, I think if anybody moves into Lancaster, when they move in here, they should be doing their homework and know what is already available in terms of parks. We have beautiful parks. We have a county park. We have other parks within this village that are being completely underutilized right now. Walden Park, there's other parks, okay, that are not being used to full capacity. Why do we need an additional park? Please explain to me why we need another park. We don't need another park, okay? We really don't. I think anybody that moves, like I said before, anybody that moves into this neighborhood should have already done their homework. It should not be an afterthought after they move into a development and go, oh gee, there's no place for my kids to play. That should be their first thought when they move into a development. And I've already spoke to Mr. Leary, and my suggestion is before you develop any more property in Lancaster, okay, it should be up to the developer to put in a pocket park for the residents that live in his area that are buying houses from him. It should be up to him, okay, to put in a pocket park and save the taxpayers their dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. So, we do have a moratorium going on right now, and one of the things we're looking at is for any developers who come in to add a park, small park in there for that specific development. So that may be, again, we're looking at doing that for the future. Part of the reason we had the moratorium was to figure out exactly what we do need from developments coming in here. We've had quite a few of them, and the town got pretty full. Who's next? Who wants to come up and talk about the park? Feel free. Okay, Mr. Soika?
Greg Soika, 19 Spruceland Terrace. I want to thank the members of the Moratorium Committee for all their dedication and hard work. Your collective wisdom and vision will help to ensure that the promise of development evolves in a safe, sensible, and prosperous way. I know that your diligence will result in a community that we can pass on with pride to our children. The town board's unanimous decision to adopt the moratorium abandoned the closed practices and policies of previous boards. In doing so, the board not only kept faith with the Lancaster voters, but created an era of partnership with all the town's residents. Today, Lancaster's people, not the powerful interests, will determine the future direction of our town, and that is the way it should be. Regarding that partnership, I wish to remind everyone that on November 5th, the ballot is a referendum to construct a new park in Lancaster. I know that passions run high on both sides of this issue, and I urge everyone to vote their conscience. But if I may, I wish to relate my personal thoughts. According to the Lancaster Master Plan that I believe cost $275,000, the town is deficient by over 200 acres in green space reservation. With the construction of a new park, Lancaster will substantially retain some of the valuable green space, while at the same time it will offer Lancaster's children and adults some great recreational benefits. I want everyone to bear in mind that Lancaster's land holdings are fixed. We simply cannot get more land. If a park is not constructed, surely this land will be acquired by developers. It will be their wants and needs that are satisfied, and done so at the expense of family-friendly green space. Nevertheless, it is only because of this board's desire to partner with, not decide for, the people of Lancaster that this referendum is on the ballot, and that speaks to the board's respect for the Lancaster residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else want to come up and be heard on this matter? I mean, that's what we're here for you folks. Come on up. Mr. Thill, you can be next. Next. Bob? Bob, there's one person in front of you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Deborah Abel. I live on Holland. And I just recently relocated here from Orchard Park with retirement. And I chose this spot. One of the big reasons was how walkable it was and how nice the community seemed. In the few years that I've lived here now, I have been amazed at how many parks there are. Now, I'm over 65. I don't have children playing in playgrounds. But there are a lot of playing fields compared to Orchard Park and West Seneca, the areas that I was more familiar with before. I'm a great appreciator of parks, and I don't necessarily say no to a park, but if it's all going to be, people are talking about how much farmland and green space is being taken up by developers, but if we continue to have parks and knock them down for more playing fields, it sort of seems to be a similar problem. We have a new fireman's park in a little block area that they immediately knocked down 3, 4, 5 trees, paved a chunk of it. It's a nice looking park and firemen all need our appreciation, but once again, what little green space there was disappeared in that effort. So I really get concerned that, I don't know, I walked in a few minutes late, so I don't know if the location has even been picked? Or,
No.
Okay, so are we going to be doing it on farmland that's already doesn't have many trees? Are we going to try to increase our canopy? That's really important.
We've walked several different locations at this point. So again, it's up to, if we hear from you folks and you want it, we'll follow up on that. And if you don't want it, then it's done.
Sort of hard to figure out how to vote on this if you don't know where it's going or what it's going to be. So,
Yeah, and
I realize we're sort of at the beginning of this. So.
Yeah, it's difficult for us to move forward without the residents wanting us to move forward on it.
Sure. But if we move forward, I would really vote for more,
Yeah. And since
more
you're-
Como Lake Park area with a few, playing fields if you need it. But there's a lot of playing fields in this community. And it's a growing community, so it's a wonderful thing. But
Thank you.
That's my 2
Hey,
cents.
we appreciate you coming here from Orchard Park, spread the word. We love it here in Lancaster. And since you haven't been here for a couple of years, we were looking at parks a couple of years ago, and we got pushed from both sides, basically. So that's when we decided to leave it up to the residents as to what they want.
Yeah. And since I'm an old lady, it's lovely that we have one block Main Street, but there's not enough handicap spots there. So everybody's going to the 3 drinking establishments on our one block Main Street. And those of us that want to go to some of the other places can't park within walking distance.
So you said right out here, there's not enough handicap spots?
Well,
Okay.
so,
We can pass it along.
2 cents.
I know
Thank
the
you.
village is working on changing the code. They were going to put them in, but they have
They
to
are.
change code in order to turn them into handicap spots, so they're coming soon.
Mr. Thill? Yes. Come on up.
Long time since First of all, thank you very much for the information meeting. I appreciate that very much. I had hopes a little bit that as I walked in the door, I'd at least be handed a copy of what we're going to be voting on. Do you have that? Can you tell us what we're voting on?
I can tell you what we're voting on
Yeah, I
from the resolution. The actual referendum, I do
Yeah, I
not
mean,
have
when we
a
go
copy
to
of
the
that.
polls,
right
what
now.
am I going to see? What am I going to vote on?
The ballot, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I'd be
we'll get
interested.
that, pass it out.
When I vote, I'd like to know what I'm voting on. Okay. that's good.
Okay.
So it's my understanding this is an information meeting
Mm-hmm.
to gather, for us to get information so that when we get to the polls, we will know somewhat what we're voting for.
Correct.
Okay. And so far, the information seems to be, there are people that would like additional parklands in the South Downs area, and there are people that are not too happy about that. That's what I'm getting information so far. My question to you is, prior to this meeting, has the board reached out to a grant writer to see if we could get a grant to find out the answers to some of these questions?
It-
And the answer is
to-
probably no.
Well, we've spoken to grant writers about getting funding for a
Funding?
park to actually reach out there and do a study among the residents. Again, if you come back here a couple years ago when we were looking at, putting up some park space, we heard from the residents at that point in time, where again, it was pretty much almost 50-50 as to we're for the parks, we're not for the parks. If you look at, as Mr. Soika talked about, when you look at our master plan, we are under as far as green space goes, which would include some park usage out of that. So we have looked at this quite a bit over the last couple of years. I don't think going out and spending, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of the residents' money to find out exactly anything that we've already known is going to help us in any way, but appreciate that.
Okay, if I very, very quickly read the town of Lancaster approves a 5-5 bond resolution authorizing the acquisition of property. Okay, so you have actually, to this point, adopted a resolution authorizing the existence of bonds to the point of $7,500,000.
No, we haven't.
You have not.
No.
With the vote of this next election day,
Correct.
if the citizenry votes yes, that is the go-ahead for you to pass that resolution.
That's correct.
Gotcha, okay. So at that point,
With another public hearing.
another public hearing for that
For the
bond
bond,
resolution.
correct.
Gotcha. Public hearing is held on the bond resolution where we will have an opportunity again to speak on behalf of this resolution, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's say then that the board adopts their bond resolution. Obviously, you do not go out and borrow $7.5 million.
That's correct.
You will then go out and seek people in expertise that will assist you in what this park is going to look like. A planner, maybe an engineer. That engineer has to be paid. So you will probably issue what I think is called a bond anticipation note, which means this is a note that may go for a year or 2 years for maybe $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 to pay these little incremental costs. And then as this project goes on to construction, you will then issue another bond anticipation note, and then maybe another one, and then a biggie for the final. And then very, very near the end, you'll know what this particular project costs. And then you will go to Wall Street and you will sell bonds to the public, and those funds will be used to pay off all these little notes along the way.
That's
Are we
correct.
on the right track here?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We do have some help right now from our own town engineer.
okay, good.
And again, we have been looking at parks quite a
Because
bit.
I've had
just so you
people
know.
ask me, if we vote on this, 7.5 million, right away, interest is starting going to go. And I said, no, that's not true. I said, it's my understanding that the interest doesn't start to accrue until you sign the note for the first bond anticipation note. In the meanwhile, you're going to have certain costs with bond counsel to prepare that bond.
That's
And the
correct.
bond anticipation note. And then, yeah, okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So much of this then depends on whether or not you get the flag from the people of the town of Lancaster. Yeah, go ahead. You have authorization to borrow $7,500,000, and then it's at that bond hearing, you may have more information on what you think this project is going to look like.
Yes,
And I'm assuming too that this bond resolution, after you adopt it, is going to be subject to not a mandatory, but a permissive referendum,
correct.
which means if a number of people get up and say, even though this little group here voted, or the people voted that you should have the authorization to do this, when the bond resolution comes up, they still have an opportunity to have a certain number of taxpayers before say, we want this to go to a public vote of all the people.
Okay, not being an attorney.
No?
Okay, I think the referendum is taking care of a
I just
part
want
of
to make
that,
sure that.
and that's
it's
why
an
we're doing it.
information hearing, that people have the information that they need,
Mm-hmm.
that this isn't just a done deal, that you're going to, as it goes on, you're going to follow the steps that should be set. Okay?
That's correct, sir.
My one question, you made reference to the master plan of the town of Lancaster and the green space, Melissa. Did that include the county park, all the green space of the county park, not just the town of Lancaster? And did it include Keysa Park? And did it include all the parks in the village of Lancaster, little pocket park? It'd just be interesting to know.
Yeah.
I
see if I
don't
can
need an
find
answer
that
now.
while we're
I don't need
sitting
an
here.
answer now. All these people say, oh, we got all these, we're lacking all this green space. There are a lot of parks in this town. And they are beautiful parks. And my concern is, I would very happily see a good planned park for the South Towns. But if we already have 8 pickleball courts in Como Park, and 2 tennis courts in Como Park, and William Street is right on the South Towns border, if they come and say, well, we'd like a park with 10 more pickleball courts, or we want a sledding hill. If they come and they want duplication of these things, they're right in their own backyard. So it's important that we know what this park is going to look like, and before we spend all this money. Just them old guys look at the things the way I look at them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for now.
Appreciate it. Okay, who's next to come up? Yes, sir.
Earl Malone, William Street. Been a resident for 61 years, been in the same spot. I guess I just like my roots. So, appreciate all the hard work you folks do and all the things you bring forward. But I do have some questions. So, basically you guys can't pinpoint the thing, and I don't want to drone all over that again, but it's kind of important for me, and kind of one of the points that he just made. If you're in the South, which I am South Lake, I'm William Street, we're at Elma, Cheektowaga, Depew, you can't police it, we all know that. But at that point, anybody that goes to Como Park could just as well go to these parks. I go with my dog 2-3 times a week in Como Park and then in Elmo Park. I don't see the full capacity. Is there moments? Absolutely. But as a general note, no. So my questions are, do we know at the 7.5, which we know it would be greater than that to maintain the park, do you know per thousand what that would cost and how long is that bond? Is it a 30-year bond?
We have our Director of Finance who just walked in right in the middle of it. Can you answer that question or give an estimate?
I believe it would be a 30-year issuance.
Okay. And
Nick, you
do we
want to
know
just
per
grab a
thousand
seat right
that would
there?
end up costing at 7.5?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So would we know per thousand of what that would, a 7.5 would reflect with the interest? I know you don't have a locked interest and it's a hard formula
Like per thousand as in,
for taxable.
We
What
could-
would it cost the taxpayers additional?
I don't know that at the moment, but we could certainly run those numbers and provide it to the public.
Yeah. And do we know who would be the committee to select the property that you would put the park on?
The committee would be basically, if we got the okay from the residents, we've already gone out and looked at several different locations, so the decision would be made by the town board with the input from our parks crew chief here and other people involved in there, the town engineer. Obviously, we look at things, and if there's any kind of water issues and all those, we've already looked at quite a bit of that. So it'd be decided right here with the town board as to if we're going to, if we can work out, again, we got to work out a price with somebody. If we're going to purchase this land, we have a pretty good idea of the bigger pieces of land because we've already walked them. And we've already done some water wetland studies on there. So it would be decided in the town board here.
But at one point, you might have to do eminent domains if the landowner wasn't willing.
No, I personally have no intention of doing any eminent domain. It will be from somebody who wants to sell their land and the price is right.
So we don't know what would be taken off the tax rolls then. This land that would be currently on the tax rolls would be taken off the tax rolls.
That would be correct.
That's a good point.
Okay. Do we know how acreage-wise what we're looking at?
The biggest parks that we looked at, go ahead, Ed, if you could give me an estimate on there, you got it.
Roughly. I mean, like I said, we've looked at several parcels, they're varying in size. Anywhere from, bear with me a second. 22 acres, 20 acres, so I would say between 20 and 30 acres, give or take.
Does the town currently own any bit of the parcels that you're looking at?
No.
No.
Okay. To wrap it up on my end here, you know, the thing that I struggle about deciding yes or no is not knowing where it goes, and I'm not going to rehash it, but that's what I struggle with. Not knowing where the location is roughly short of south of Broadway. That's pretty broad, you know. So I appreciate your guys' time, and I do appreciate your guys' hard work.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir?
I have no notes. I just want to thank first for putting the moratorium in place. I don't believe people understand the drainage problems Lancaster has with all the homes and the apartments we're having. There's a lot of drainage issues, more houses, more apartments, more issues, more traffic. And I guarantee you 100% those properties will become apartments and homes. Traffic, schools, more buses, more plows, more police. I hear a lot about Como Park, sir. It's a town park. I'm sorry. I'm an Erie County Sheriff, retired. It's a county park. They could do anything they want with it. I was assigned for the last 13 years of my career with the Court of Claims officer, or judge. I'm sorry. You know how many county parks there are in Erie County? Anybody? It's like six or seven. Elmo Meadows is a county park. We've heard cases trying to get rid of Como Park. They're putting Cheektowaga, putting Hammer, because they don't have county parks. The county, under the county supervisor, could change Como Park like that. It might not be there. It could be a solar plant, a solar farm. I've heard that before. I've heard they sold it to, they were on the verge when Borski was in to build homes there because it's a beautiful piece of property. The fields that they rent in Como Park and the pavilions goes to the county. Ours would go to us, the income. Pavilions, I don't know, they get $250 a day or $125 a day to rent a pavilion.
Bruce?
Something like that.
Depends if,
A weekend?
A weekend is more expensive, it's $325.
There you go.
$150 on weekends.
Fields, our children, I don't have son, I have my grandfather now. They go to other towns to plan fields. We don't have soccer fields and lacrosse and field hockey. They rent these fields from Orchard Park. They rent them field Elma. Look across Iroquois. They put those fields in, so they rent them to leagues. Federal dollars right now under this administration, as much as either you're for or against, they're very big green people. There's a lot of money out there, which I found out working the courts with the judge. We traveled the whole 8th district, which is all the counties around. This is a problem with green space and building. If you don't want a park, I know a family, the only reason it's not sold yet is because this man put a building moratorium right. Now, he can only do that so many times, because then the builders get an attorney, and he has to have a really good reason to keep that in place, because they get really good attorneys. So I hate speaking in front of crowds, but I'm just telling you, I know a family that's already sold their land for it's not, I'm not against a house on my street. I'm not against a new house on your street. They're building new streets. New streets, more plows. New streets, more police. And who patrols Como Park? Lancaster patrols Como Park. I was a sheriff. We get the call, but they're there first. So it's our police force is the main force in Como Park. They don't like it because it's a county park, but the sheriffs are strapped, so they send Lancaster. It's the same thing mostly with every county park, the locals. So for everybody to say, we have Como Park, we don't have Como Park. The county has Como Park. When Como Park leaves, which everybody knows he's gonna, you don't know what the next county executive is gonna do. You don't know where that park's gonna go. You don't know who he's gonna open up to. These are things that I've heard in the courtroom, bickering and backering with developers in towns. So my view is green space is gone. Once builders build, and you saw Trans Road how fast Brian Young is putting up apartments. I mean, they're cutting, that's what the drainage stuff. And I know Brian, but he's building them all the way to Genesee. And you don't think he's already approached families for this property that they're looking at? Because these are not, probably, most of them are not landlocked, correct? I mean, they're buildable for communities. So you're not talking about a house. You're talking about more homes, streets. Off of Bowen, which started as one resident, it goes 2 miles back, more streets. I saw the leaf blower on the way to where I was going this morning. They were picking up leaves. More streets, more equipment, more people to work the equipment, more mechanics for the trucks. I mean, I don't want taxes raised, but Cheektowaga is raising taxes. They didn't build a park. West Seneca is having a war. They didn't build a park, but their taxes are going up. Amherst, 20%, because of the influx of homes and apartments. And apartment buildings, I know for a fact, one apartment sometimes has 3 families in it because they want the school system. And I don't know if there's a check and balance how we could do something like check where they live on the school rolls. But 3 families are living in a 1-family apartment. So that builder that owns the apartment is paying taxes on like a 4-family apartment, but there's 6 families living in there because they want our school systems. So they're beating us. So the more apartments you put up, the more of that. Now Section 8 housing, which you have to incorporate in apartments. I'm not against Section 8 homes, but if you put them up against your property line, usually your home goes down in value. And I'm not, that's a fact, you could look it up. I'm not against it, I'm not for it. I get it, we're trying to get people out here that can't afford it. You get a Section 8 housing, 10% of it has to be low income. So the more apartments, the more low income. And like I said, God bless them for coming out here, but there are problems. And if you talk to the Lancaster police, you could ask. So I'm just saying, research. And I want to thank you and the board for putting that moratorium in, because I don't think everybody understands the drainage issues and traffic patterns that are developing inside Lancaster. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Ma'am? How you doing?
Hello, good. Chris Wolf, I live over in Holland. First of all, I agree I'm all in favor of stopping, or at the very least limiting any new builds, housing, businesses, whatever, and trying to preserve the green space. The question seems to be how to do that. Actually, a very simple question. Has it been determined that we need new fields for different sports leagues in our own town, or?
Yes, it has. Our soccer fields are pretty limited at this point. If you're
Okay.
talking strictly sports fields. Basically, we have Westwood. We're going to be putting in a turf field, which is just changing the land in Walden Pond, which will have a soccer field there. But they don't have, like they have in West Seneca, anywhere where there's like 2 or 3 parks. So they can't really host a tournament in the town of Lancaster. So
Okay.
we're lacking in that area. As far as lacrosse, I don't know where lacrosse plays, to tell you the truth. Again, they'll be able to use the turf field, but they could probably use another field as well. So we are lacking in certain sports fields, mostly soccer. Bruce, anything else? Or Bob? Fields, what are we looking for besides soccer?
We're stressed with all the fields, just due to the population growth, the road for sports, softball, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, football. All of our fields are stressed right now, for sure. In fact, we work with private organizations, which is Lancaster Community Soccer, and we have to go and have their teams that should be in our parks, they're playing on school district grounds. So there's a bit of an issue, obviously, these groups going and playing on district grounds and things like that. So, lacrosse fields, we have 1 in town. We have 2 full-size soccer fields. We have 3 U8s and a U12. All the other fields are on school property.
Okay.
And so we are definitely lacking, scheduling all these
All right.
organizations in.
So if there's a need there, that's good. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Mr. Sweeney, how you doing?
Good. Tom Sweeney, 22 Ashwood Court. Associated with that conversation, when I was raising my kids in Lancaster, we definitely struggled with soccer fields, and I've been working with Lancaster Depew Soccer, on and off with friends there, trying to figure out where can we get more fields. So it's definitely a huge need. And as I think about that, I'm referring to the 2018, the last Joint Comprehensive Master Plan. It specifically states, consider a local parks master plan to identify specific recreational and facility needs, identify potential sites, park expansion, things like that. And that, I struggle with this because I see some of the needs from when my kids were younger. They're grown now. I also see the struggles with all of us trying to pay our taxes and our residents. Have we done any work associated with trying to statistically figure out what do we need, what are we missing, those types of things, and where there's opportunities. I always thought it was a great opportunity for Lancaster Depew Soccer to use the backfields in the high school to do the huge tournament that they host every year. You're kind of multi-use using that as well.
The high schools are closing out outside groups.
Are they? Yeah. And they're constrained. They're doing a lot of different things with that property, so it's kind of interesting. But I'm looking for something like a document, a study of something. I know we don't want to waste taxpayer dollars, but when I was in consulting and working with other companies, we would pay the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to do that plan, that strategy, to give us the information. We're not experts individually. We're on boards and doing different things. Can we use experts to try to give us some teeth to, this is what we want to do, this is why we want to do it? It sounds loose to me, and I'd love to see some of that more concrete information. We know that Lancaster Depew Soccer is, let's say, growing at 10% a year for the last 15 years. We know that we only have access to 18 fields, in Westwood Park and some other areas. We always struggled in the winter with facilities, trying to borrow gyms and do those kinds of things. So I'd love to see something like that brings everything together, that really gives everybody some information to vote on. So, but thank you.
Thank you. Ed, how many studies have we had done?
Well, between the comp plan and one of the things that with the grant writer that we're working on is that there are grants available for the planning and then for the design and for partial of the construction. So again, should the public say, yes, proceed looking at something, I would, strongly, I'm
That's when
assuming
we-
we're going to be going after every grant we can
Yeah,
get from
that's
parks
when we start the grant cycle.
to
Yeah.
help fund. There's always a match the town has to put up there, but obviously it reduces the total cost of the town. But yeah, that would be one of the first steps, is to be engaged with a park master plan to look at what pieces are needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be overnight. If this thing passes, boom, we have a park, this many fields, this, and this. We do have statistically what's been going on, with our parks being filled in the sports fields, we pretty much have the numbers on that already. I think we paid for some studies before on Parkland, didn't we, when we had them? Well, we're paying you guys for taking a look.
We actually, we pursued a park grant through the county, but we were unsuccessful with that. But the grants that we're looking to pursue with the grant writer would be through the state parks.
And we had the governor's office representative stopped in here the other day, which is really unusual for us. And again, I was able to tell them that we're looking at grants for the parks is pretty high on our list, so.
Yeah, and I would say if the referendum were to pass, that would be a strong piece of the grant application to go to the state and say, hey, we've got support, and now we want to proceed with this thing, step by step.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, I don't see any more hands. If you folks want to send emails or anything else, feel free to do so. You can send them to me directly if you want, which is rleary@lancasterny.gov. So it's rleary@lancasterny.gov, and I will make sure that they get around to all the board members with your, thoughts, opinions, questions, and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as we can. We do want to thank everybody for coming this evening. Greatly appreciate you showing up and giving us your input. Anything else, board members?
No?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody wants to stick around? We got a work session at 6:30 and a public regular town board meeting at 7. But thank you again for coming. Take care.
Camera at the right time.